A seal found a frozen officer. Holding her canine. What happened? Moments later will shatter you. The blizzard came down like punishment. Snow hammered the cabin walls, howling through the pines that bent under the storm's weight. Inside, Cole Mercer stood by the window, the faint glow of a lantern casting his silhouette against the frost. His reflection stared back, tired eyes, beard grown wild, a man who'd tried to bury the war in silence. He had come to Aspen Hollow to disappear. A single cabin, miles from the nearest road. Just him, the storm, and a dog's memory that never left his mind. A canine named Odin who'd died in his arms overseas. But tonight, something different stirred beyond the sound of wind. A noise that didn't belong. A faint whine. Cole froze. For a second he thought it was in his head. Then it came again. A muffled cry, half human, half animal, cutting through the storm. He grabbed his parka, pulled a flashlight from the hook, and stepped outside. The cold hit him like a wall. Snow clawed at his face as he trudged towards the tree line. The beam from his flashlight cut through the blizzard, white chaos swallowing every shape, every sound. Then he saw them. Two shadows against the snow. One slumped figure half buried, the other smaller, shaking, struggling to move. He dropped to his knees beside the woman first, her uniform stiff with ice, lips blue, badge half visible beneath a crust of frost. Next to her, a German shepherd lay bound by thick rope, muzzle raw where it had been tightened too long. The dog growled weakly when Cole reached for him, not in threat, but pain. The sound was more human than animal, and it broke through the soldier's shell in a way nothing else had in years. "It's okay, buddy," Cole muttered, cutting the rope with his knife. "You're safe now." The dog collapsed, too exhausted to fight. Cole checked the woman's pulse. Faint, but there. He lifted her into his arms, then turned back to grab the dog. That's when he noticed the paper pinned to her vest, soaked and frozen at the edges. He peeled it free, reading under the flashlight. This is what happens to those who talk. The words hit like shrapnel. He looked around, the tree line, the dark slope beyond, every instinct flaring alive. This wasn't random. Someone had dumped them here to die. Cole threw the woman over his shoulder, whistled softly to the dog, and started the long trudge back to the cabin. The shepherd staggered beside him, head low but following. When they reached the porch, Cole noticed something else. Tire tracks. Fresh, already half filled with snow. A large vehicle, heavy tread, maybe a van. He scanned the forest again, but the storm erased everything. Inside, he lit the stove and laid the woman on the couch, wrapping her in blankets. He rubbed her hands, her face, whispering the old training under his breath. Warm core first, never rush the pulse. Then he turned to the dog, who watched him through half-lidded eyes. "Hang in there," Cole said. "You didn't come this far to quit." He poured warm water into a bowl, let the shepherd sniff it. The dog's nose twitched, and after a second, he drank. Slow at first, then desperate. Cole examined the collar. Engraved Ranger, Silver Bend PD K9 unit. Police. Cole looked back at the woman. Her badge read Officer Elena Rowe. A faint breath steamed from her lips. She was alive, barely. He pulled out his med kit, saline, gauze, a small bottle of penicillin, habit from a life he'd sworn off. The movements came naturally, precise, automatic. When he was done, he sat back on the floor beside the dog. "You're her partner, huh?" he said softly. "You didn't give up on her." Ranger lifted his head, eyes locking onto Cole's, the same haunted look he'd seen in every battlefield survivor. A bond built in pain, not words. Then came the sound. A distant engine, faint under the storm. Cole's hand went to his pistol without thinking. The sound faded quickly. Maybe just wind, maybe not. He moved to the window, killing the lantern. Darkness swallowed the room. Outside, snow still fell heavy, but now he saw faint movement near the ridge, a flicker of headlights, gone as fast as they appeared. Whoever left them in the storm might still be close. Cole turned back to the woman, then to the dog, both breathing shallow but steady. The paper's words echoed in his mind. This is what happens to those who talk. He tossed it into the stove, watching the edges curl and blacken. He knew what this meant. This wasn't a rescue. It was the beginning of something far uglier. He looked at the shepherd once more. "You feel it too, don't you?" He whispered. "War's here again." Ranger gave a low rumble in his throat. Not quite a growl, not quite agreement, just the sound of understanding. Outside, the blizzard screamed, swallowing the world whole. Inside, 3 survivors breathed the same air, a soldier, a cop, and a dog, bound by a truth none of them yet knew, but all could feel coming. The storm had not let up. It screamed across the valley like a living thing, clawing at the roof, shaking the old windows of the cabin. Inside, the heat from the wood stove struggled to push back the cold. Steam rose from wet clothes hung near the fire. The air smelled of pine smoke and antiseptic. Cole worked quietly, his breath steady, his hands moving with practiced precision. The woman lay on his couch, her skin pale under the lamplight. He had stripped off the frozen uniform jacket, wrapped her in a wool blanket, and secured her shoulder with a splint made from 2 pieces of wood and a torn towel. Her pulse fluttered weakly beneath his fingers. The dog lay on the rug beside the fire. Ranger's chest rose and fell in shallow, trembling breaths. His coat was matted with ice, his paw bleeding from where the rope had rubbed the skin raw. Cole knelt beside him, running a hand over the shepherd's ribs. The dog's eyes flickered open, cloudy with exhaustion but alert enough to follow every movement. "You're a fighter," Cole murmured, "so stay in the fight." He cleaned the wound, wrapped it tight, and slipped a little warm broth toward him. Ranger didn't move at first. Then, with a groan that sounded almost human, he shifted closer and began to drink. Cole turned back to the woman. She stirred, her lips parting, a whisper catching in her throat. "Ridge. Unit." Her voice was faint, barely a sound. Cole leaned closer. "What did you say?" Her eyes fluttered open for a second, grey-blue, glassy, unfocused. They know. Don't trust." Then she was gone again, sinking back into unconsciousness. The Ridge Unit. Cole had never heard the name, but something in her tone, the fear, the urgency, made the hairs on his neck rise. He knew the sound of someone running from their own kind. He stood, grabbed the radio from the shelf, and switched it on. Static filled the room. The line crackled before a female voice came through. "Forest Service, Jensen speaking. Abby, it's Cole." A pause. "Cole Mercer? Jesus, I thought you fell off the map. You hearing this storm? You better not be out on the ridge." "I'm not, but I've got a situation. Found an officer half frozen in the woods. She's alive, barely, and her K9's hurt." He heard Abby curse softly on the other end. "A cop? From Silverbend?" "Yeah. Badge says Elena Rowe. That's 20 miles out of her jurisdiction. I'm on my way." "You can't," Cole said. "Roads are blocked." "Then I'll walk." She cut the line before he could argue. Outside, the storm raged on. The cabin groaned under the wind. Cole sat back down beside the woman, checking her breathing again. Ranger shifted, pressing his muzzle against her leg. The dog's loyalty was unshakable. Even half dead, he guarded her as if death itself needed permission to come closer. An hour later, headlights flared through the window. Abby stumbled inside, her ranger jacket caked with snow, her cheeks red from the cold. "You weren't kidding," she said, taking in the scene. "Looks like you dragged them straight from hell." "Feels like it," Cole answered. Abby knelt beside Ranger. "He's a beauty," she whispered, examining the bandaged paw. "You did a clean job, but he needs stitches. You still got that kit from your field days?" Cole nodded. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work. The dog trembled but didn't bite, only whimpered softly when the needle passed through skin. Cole held him steady, murmuring low, steady words the way soldiers talk to wounded brothers. "There you go. Easy, Ranger. You're almost through." When they were done, Abby wiped her hands and sat back. "That shoulder of hers is busted clean," she said, glancing at Elena. "Looks like she fell, hard before the cold got her. She said something about the Ridge unit." Cole said, "Mean anything to you?" Abby frowned. "Yeah, it's a tactical unit from Silver Bend PD. Internal enforcement, high clearance. They're not supposed to be out this far." "They are now," Cole said quietly. He handed her the note he'd found on Elena's vest. Abby read it aloud. "This is what happens to those who talk." She exhaled slowly. "Jesus, sounds like she was targeted." Cole nodded. "And whoever did it might still be out there." A sharp sound made both of them turn. Ranger's ears shot up, nose pointing at the door. A low growl rolled from his chest. Cole grabbed his rifle, moved to the window. The storm had softened to a blur of white. Through it, faintly, a figure moved near the tree line, too tall for an animal, too still for wind. The moment Cole aimed the flashlight, the figure vanished. Abby whispered, "You think they followed her here?" "I think they didn't finish the job," Cole said. They stayed silent, listening. Nothing but the wind. Still, Ranger refused to settle. His eyes stayed locked on the door, tail stiff, body tense. Cole finally moved back to the couch. He placed a hand on the dog's neck. "You did good," he said softly. "You kept her alive." Ranger blinked, pressing his muzzle into Cole's palm. A quiet bond formed, unspoken, but strong enough to feel like the start of something neither could walk away from. Abby broke the silence. "You planning to call this in?" Cole looked at the unconscious officer. "If this was just an accident, I would. But that note, and the way she's out here alone? No, not yet." "Then what do you plan to do?" He stared at the fire, the flames dancing in his eyes. "Find out who she was running from." Outside, the storm began to ease, leaving the world blank and silent. Inside the cabin, the warmth held 3 souls bound by chance, sitting in a room that suddenly felt too small for how many ghosts had just walked in with them. Morning crept into the cabin slowly, thin light filtering through frosted windows. The storm had quieted, leaving a world buried in white silence. Inside, the air was still except for the crackle of firewood and the slow, steady breathing of 3 survivors. Cole sat by the table, his rifle within reach, watching the woman sleep. He hadn't closed his eyes all night. Ranger lay curled beside her, his chest rising with a soft rhythm, his paw now stitched and wrapped. Every few minutes the dog's ears twitched toward the window, guarding even in rest. When Elena Rowe stirred, it was sudden. Her body tensed, breath catching. Cole stood, instinctively reaching for the water on the stove. But before he could speak, she bolted upright, eyes wild. "Don't come closer!" she gasped, voice hoarse and broken. Cole froze. Her gaze darted across the room. The fire, the bandages on her arm, the faint smell of antiseptic. Then to him, standing in flannel and boots, his face half in shadow. She scrambled back until her shoulder hit the wall, pain ripping through her body. "Where's my gun?" she shouted. "Where's Ranger?" At the sound of his name, Ranger lifted his head. The moment her eyes met the dog's, her panic cracked. She reached for him with trembling hands. "Ranger, you're alive." The shepherd whined softly, dragging himself across the rug despite the injury. He pressed his head into her chest, tail thumping weakly against the floor. Tears streaked her face. She buried her fingers in his fur, whispering, "Good boy. You stayed with me." Cole set the cup of water on the table. "You were half frozen when I found you," he said quietly. "You and your partner here. You're safe now." Her eyes flicked to him, suspicion still sharp. "Who are you?" "Name's Cole Mercer. Used to serve with the SEALs. Now I mostly chop wood and talk to ghosts." He nodded toward the dog. "You can thank him. He barked before I saw you." She hesitated, clutching Ranger closer. The dog didn't growl this time. He looked between them, then rested his muzzle on her leg, calm, steady, as if to say it was okay. Cole saw the moment her breathing slowed, the fight draining out of her. She looked around the cabin again, taking in the gear, the maps, the worn photographs on the wall. "You live out here alone?" "Been that way a while," he said. "People are easier to fight when they're memories." Elena exhaled, leaning back. Her voice softened. "I thought you were one of them." "Who's them?" She hesitated, then looked him dead in the eye. "Silver Bend Police Department. My department." Cole frowned. "You're a cop." "Detective?" She corrected, though her voice wavered. "Undercover. I was embedded with a logistics crew that works out of the state park. It's a front. They're moving military-grade weapons and fentanyl shipments through old service roads. My cover got blown 2 nights ago." She glanced toward the window, as if expecting headlights to appear in the snow. "They killed my partner first, then came for me." Cole felt the words settle like ice in his gut. "You're saying your own people are in on it?" "Not all of them," she said. "But the ones that matter. The Ridge Unit. They're supposed to be internal enforcement. Instead, they're cleaning up anyone who talks." Cole remembered the note frozen to her jacket. "This is what happens to those who talk." "What kind of evidence do you have?" he asked. "My phone. It's gone." Her jaw clenched. It had recordings, documents, everything tying the operation to the chief. When they caught on, they ambushed me near Timberfall Creek. Ranger fought them off long enough for me to run, but they shot him, tied us, and dumped us in the storm to die. Cole's eyes flicked to the dog. Ranger watched her, quietly, ears twitching as if he remembered every second of that night. "You're lucky he didn't stop," Cole said. "He must have dragged toward the sound of my generator. That's how I found you." Elena pressed a shaking hand against her face. "If they know I'm alive, they'll come back." Cole poured coffee into a mug and handed it to her. "Then we don't make it easy for them." She looked up, studying him. "You don't even know me." "I know the kind of people who write threats in blood," he said. "And I've seen what happens when no one fights back." Ranger shifted suddenly, standing on 3 legs, nose flaring towards the door. A low growl rippled through his chest. Cole followed his gaze. Movement in the distance, beyond the frosted glass. A flash of silver, then gone. "Someone's out there," Elena whispered. Cole grabbed the rifle, moving towards the window. The silence outside was too perfect, the kind that hides sound rather than lacks it. He could feel it, that same electric stillness before gunfire. Then faintly in the wind, a metallic crack. The echo of a car door slamming shut. Cole turned back to her. "We need to move. If they're tracking you, this place won't stay safe for long." Elena reached for Ranger, who stood alert beside her. "He can walk. He'll follow." Cole gave a small nod. "Then we're leaving in 10. Grab whatever you can carry." As she tried to stand, her knees buckled. Cole caught her, steadying her by the arm. For a brief second, their eyes met. 2 people broken in different ways, both realizing survival wasn't enough anymore. "Why are you helping me?" she asked quietly. Cole hesitated. Because once someone pulled me out of the snow too. I didn't thank them soon enough. Ranger barked once, sharp, commanding, as if calling them both back to the present. The storm outside had ended, but the real one was just beginning, and Cole knew, with every instinct honed by war, that saving this woman and her dog wasn't an accident. It was a summons, a second battle waiting to be fought. The morning after her confession, the air outside had turned glassy and still. A hush hung over the valley, the kind that makes every breath feel too loud. Cole stepped outside to split wood, but before he could raise the axe, Elena appeared in the doorway, pale, determined, wrapped in his oversized flannel coat. "I'm going back," she said. Cole didn't look up. "You're barely standing. You step out there again, you'll freeze or bleed out." She crossed her arms. "I need to find my phone. It's the only proof I have." "That proof isn't worth your life." Before she could answer, Ranger barked sharply from the edge of the clearing. The shepherd was standing alert, nose high, tail stiff. He looked from Cole to the tree line and barked again, more urgent this time. Cole frowned. "What is it, boy?" Ranger started moving, head low, pouring through the snow. Then he looked back as if waiting for them to follow. Elena's voice dropped to a whisper. "He's taking us back there." Cole hesitated. His instincts told him to stay put. But the dog's eyes held the kind of certainty that soldiers learn not to question. He grabbed his rifle and nodded. "We move slow. You stay behind me." The three of them trudged through the knee-deep snow, Ranger leading with silent precision. The trees closed around them, shadows stretching long in the morning light. The storm had wiped away most of the tracks, but Ranger stopped suddenly at a patch of churned snow beneath a fallen pine. He sniffed hard, pawed twice, then began digging. Cole knelt beside him and brushed away a thin crust of ice. Something metallic glinted in the snow, a shell casing. He picked it up, rolling it between his fingers. 9mm. He muttered. Military grade. Elena crouched beside him. "My unit carries the same." Ranger moved again, circling the area, nose pressed to the ground. He stopped near a half-buried length of cord. Cole pulled it free. Olive green nylon, the kind used for tactical restraints. One end was stained dark. "That's not street junk," Cole said. "Whoever grabbed you knew their way around a field kit." They followed the trail further, where the snow was pressed into wide, deep grooves. Tire tracks. Cole crouched, running his glove across one. "Dual rear axles, heavy load vehicle. Looks like a government model," he said. "That's impossible," Elena whispered. "The service road out here's been closed for years. No one's supposed to have access." Cole stood, scanning the tree line. "Then someone's got a key." They heard a soft engine rumble in the distance, faint but distinct. Cole signaled silence, raising his hand. The three crouched low as a faint plume of exhaust drifted beyond the ridge, then faded away. Whoever it was, they were close. A branch cracked behind them. Ranger whipped around, growling low. Cole aimed his rifle toward the sound, nothing but falling snow. For a heartbeat, the woods were too quiet. Then a single bird burst from a tree, wings flashing gray against the white sky. Cole exhaled. "False alarm. Let's move." They followed Ranger deeper into the forest until he stopped beside an old wooden gate, half buried under ice. A rusted chain hung across it, but the padlock was clean. No rust, no snow build-up. Recently used. Cole brushed the metal with his glove. "That's new." Elena's voice shook slightly. "I know this gate. It leads to Ridge Road. It was decommissioned 10 years ago after a landslide. Only the city and the National Guard kept spare keys. So who the hell's been driving through it?" Ranger sniffed the ground again, then barked once, short, clipped, Certain. Cole followed his nose to a piece of torn fabric caught on a branch. It was stained reddish-brown. He pulled it free and brought it to his face. The smell hit him instantly, chemical, sharp and sweet in the back of the throat. He froze. "What is it?" Elena asked. Cole's jaw tightened. "Cutting agent. Fentanyl mix. I've smelled it before, in compounds overseas. Used to cook synthetic opioids for black markets." Elena stared at him. "You're saying this isn't just a smuggling ring?" "No," he said quietly, eyes narrowing at the snow-covered gate. "Someone's running a full-scale operation out of this forest, military equipment, federal roads, law enforcement cover. That's not local corruption. That's infrastructure." Ranger growled again, eyes fixed on the horizon. Cole turned to Elena. "Your phone's long gone. They didn't just want to silence you. They wanted to erase the trail." "And they almost did," she whispered. The wind shifted, carrying a faint chemical odor through the trees. Cole scanned the ridge again, watching for movement. Nothing but the endless white, yet his gut told him they were being watched. He lowered his rifle and looked at her. "We go back now. We regroup with Abby. If these tracks lead where I think they do, we're standing on top of a war zone." Ranger barked once, sharp and final, as if agreeing. As they turned toward the cabin, Cole cast one last look at the snow-covered gate. Beyond it, the forest stretched in silence, hiding roads that hadn't existed on any map for a decade, roads someone had been using under their noses. And somewhere beyond those trees, engines waited, quiet and patient, like predators in deep snow. The storm had passed, but the silence it left behind felt heavier than the snow on the roof. Cole stood by the window, scanning the tree line. The sky was pale and brittle, the kind of morning that made even breath sound suspicious. Inside, Elena worked quietly, organizing the files and photos she'd recovered from her jacket. Ranger paced the cabin, restless, ears flicking toward every noise outside. Something about the dog's behavior made Cole uneasy. Ranger wasn't anxious, he was searching. He'd circle the room, nose to the floor, then head towards the door, pawing at the threshold. "What's wrong with him?" Elena asked. Cole watched. "He's tracking something, not scenting danger, he's looking for a spot." Ranger whined softly, then pushed through the half-open door, bounding into the snow. Cole followed him into the yard. The dog moved straight toward the woodpile stacked against the back wall. His nose pressed to the logs, then he started digging frantically, scattering snow and splinters. "Ranger, hey, easy," Cole said, stepping closer. But the dog didn't stop. He clawed until his paw hit something solid, a dull thud beneath the ice. Cole knelt beside him, brushing away the snow. A corner of black plastic peeked through. He tugged, pulling free a heavy, mud-caked nylon bag sealed tight with duct tape. Elena had come to the door, breath catching. "What is that?" "Let's find out." Cole carried it inside, laying it on the table. The material was military-grade, waterproof. He sliced it open with his knife. Inside were smaller zip bags, a handful of SIM cards, a flash drive wrapped in cloth, and a folded sheet of paper, yellowed and torn. Elena leaned closer. Her voice was barely a whisper. "That's a police-issue evidence pouch." Cole plugged the flash drive into his old laptop. The screen flickered, loading slowly through static interference. Then, lines of data appeared, call logs, patrol schedules, vehicle assignments. Elena scrolled, her hand trembling. "These are from Silverbend PD, internal routing files." Cole scanned the dates. "Look here, patrol orders at the national park boundary, same nights those shipments moved through the valley." Her stomach dropped as she clicked open a scanned document marked Authorized Transport. At the bottom was a digital signature. Deputy Chief Miles Rennick. Elena stepped back from the table as if she'd been hit. He's my superior officer, the man who sent me undercover in the first place. Cole's expression hardened. Looks like he sent you to die. She shook her head, pacing. Rennick was supposed to protect the operation. He said he'd get me back up. If this is real, he wasn't protecting me. He was covering the roots. Cole leaned back in his chair, jaw tightening. He's been moving weapons under the shield of your department. Outside, Ranger barked suddenly. One deep, sharp sound. Cole grabbed his rifle, moving to the window. The dog stood frozen near the tree line, body low, eyes fixed on the dark edge of the forest. What's he doing? Elena whispered. Cole crouched beside the window. He's not barking at scent. That's a signal. He's found something. Ranger barked again, then growled, staring at a single spot in the woods. Cole adjusted his scope and peered through it. At first he saw nothing. Then a faint red flicker. Small, rhythmic, and wrong. He stepped outside, moving slow. Ranger waited at the edge of the clearing, tail stiff. Cole crouched beside him, following the dog's gaze. Hidden among the brush, half buried under snow, was a tiny black lens, the kind used in surveillance rigs. It blinked faintly, reflecting off the white ground. Infrared sensor, Cole muttered. He reached out carefully and pulled it free. The casing was warm, still active. He turned it over in his palm, reading the small serial code etched beneath the lens. Military-grade, encrypted frequency. Elena joined him, breath sharp. They're watching us? Not just watching, Cole said. They've been here. He crushed the sensor in his gloved hand, then looked toward the ridge. Fresh snow masked everything, but somewhere beyond the trees, someone was listening. Back inside, Elena slammed the laptop shut. If they know this. Cabin exists, we can't stay. Rennick has the resources to send a team. Cole didn't answer right away. He stared at Ranger, who sat near the door, still on alert, eyes sharp and steady. You found this for a reason, he said softly. Ranger tilted his head, then gave a quiet whine, tail sweeping the floor once. Elena crossed her arms, anger and fear twisting her voice. Cole, this isn't just corruption. This is a full-blown conspiracy inside my department. If Rennick's name is on that order, it means every raid, every patrol, all of it was a cover. Cole nodded slowly. Then we bring it down. But first we make sure no one tracks us doing it. He turned to the wood stove, opened the iron door, and tossed the shattered remains of the sensor inside. It sparked, hissed, then melted into the fire. The sound was sharp, final. For a moment, only the crackling of wood filled the room. Elena stared into the flames. You just made us enemies of the state. Cole met her gaze. Wouldn't be the first time. Outside, the wind picked up again, carrying faint echoes through the trees. Ranger stood by the window, watching, ears twitching to sounds only he could hear. He didn't bark this time. He simply stared, as if he knew the storm that was coming next wasn't made of snow at all. The night fell hard and cold over Aspen Hollow. Wind scraped against the cabin walls like invisible hands. The fire inside had burned down to embers, painting the room in slow, trembling light. Cole stood by the window, eyes fixed on the tree line. Ranger sat beside him, muscles tight, head low, a low growl building in his chest. Elena tightened the sling around her shoulder, checking the pistol Abby had brought earlier. Her breath came out in short, controlled bursts. You hear it too? Cole nodded. Yeah, not the wind. Footsteps. 5, maybe 6. He moved fast, killing the lantern. The cabin fell into near blackness, lit only by the faint glow of coals. Abby, lights out. Stay low. Abby ducked behind the counter, her rifle steady. Ranger crept toward the door, his growl deepening, fur bristling along his spine. Cole's mind shifted into instinct, the old rhythm of combat that never truly left him. He moved silently through the cabin, setting up crude defenses, fishing lines strung at ankle height, a kerosene lantern rigged to fall and flare if tripped, a metal pan placed just behind the woodpile to echo any movement outside. "Positions," he whispered. Ranger settled near the door, every sense alive. Cole crouched behind the old desk by the window, rifle ready. Elena took cover near the stairs, pistol aimed. The storm outside had stilled, making every crunch of snow sound like thunder. Then came the first flash. A red beam of light sliced through the darkness, a laser sight sweeping across the snow. Another followed, then another. Cole whispered, "They're here." The window shattered. A bullet screamed through, burying itself in the wall inches from Elena's head. She ducked, firing back. The night erupted into chaos. Muzzle flashes lit the forest like lightning. Ranger lunged to the door, barking ferociously, snapping at the flash of boots approaching. Cole fired twice through the open window. A cry cut through the wind, then silence. He chambered another round. 2 down. But there were more. Shadows moved fast, flanking both sides. Abby swung her rifle toward the rear door, firing just as it splintered. The figure fell back into the snow, motionless. Another burst of gunfire tore through the cabin walls. Splinters rained down. Ranger barked wildly, running toward the noise. He slammed into Elena, pushing her to the floor as a bullet tore through the window where she'd been standing. Cole cursed under his breath. "They're trying to flush us out." The radio crackled. Static, then a male voice distorted through a scrambler. "Unit in position. Finish the cop. The seal's just collateral." Elena froze. "That voice! I know it!" Cole's blood ran cold. "Rennick." The firefight intensified. Bullets shattered the last of the windows. Cole crawled to the back door, pulled a flare from his vest, and threw it into the snow. It burst in a bright orange flash, blinding their attackers for a split second. He kicked open the door, firing into the chaos. 2 figures dropped. Ranger was already moving, charging through the open doorway, teeth bared, straight into the smoke and snow. A gunshot rang out, followed by a scream. Cole sprinted after him. He found Ranger on top of one of the masked men, jaws locked around the man's wrist, dragging the weapon from his grip. Abby fired a warning shot above them, forcing the last 2 attackers to dive behind a snowbank. "Hold your fire!" Cole yelled. "Take him alive!" Ranger released the man only when Cole ordered him back. The dog stepped aside, chest heaving, eyes fixed on the captive. Cole yanked off the man's mask. Blood streamed down his face from a cut across his forehead. "Who sent you?" Cole demanded. The man spat blood into the snow. "You already know. Say it." He hesitated, then gave a dry, bitter laugh. "Viper unit, Rennick's orders." Elena stepped closer, gun trembling in her hand. "He told you to kill me?" The man looked up, a cruel smile spreading across his bruised face. "They said finish the cop. The seal's just collateral." Abby exhaled sharply. "Jesus." Cole's jaw tightened. "Why now? You had your chance in the woods." "Because the files you found," the man said, nodding toward the cabin. "You weren't supposed to. The dog led you straight to them. Now he dies first." Before anyone could react, he reached for a hidden knife. But Ranger was faster. The shepherd lunged, slamming him into the snow. The knife flew from his hand, clattering across the ice. Cole pressed the barrel of his rifle against the man's neck. "You move again, and the next thing you feel is the trigger." The man didn't move. His eyes were wide, breath shaking. Cole cuffed his wrists with a plastic tie from his belt and dragged him inside. Once the doors were barred again, silence settled like dust. Elena sat on the floor beside Ranger, stroking his fur. "You saved my life again," she whispered. The dog looked at her, tail thumping weakly against the floorboards. Cole turned to Abby. We'll need to move before sunrise. Rennick won't stop until we're all gone. Abby nodded, glancing at the unconscious prisoner. What do we do with him? Cole stared into the fire, voice low and cold. He's our ticket to proving this whole operation exists. Outside, snow began to fall again. Light, slow, almost gentle. But the cabin no longer felt like a shelter. It felt like a trap waiting to be sprung again. Ranger lay near the door, eyes open, watching the darkness. Every few seconds his ears twitched toward the forest, not from fear, but from vigilance. He was still guarding them, even in the quiet after battle. Cole sat beside the dog, hand resting on his back. You did good tonight, he murmured. Ranger's breathing slowed, but his gaze never left the window. Somewhere out in the black woods, men like Rennick still hunted them, and Cole knew the fight had only just begun. The air inside the cabin still smelled of gunpowder and pine smoke. Outside, the forest slept beneath a thin crust of snow, calm but deceptive, a quiet too deep, too complete. Inside, the table was cleared of everything except Cole's old laptop and the USB Ranger had unearthed. Elena sat across from him, her shoulder bandaged tight, eyes fixed on the flickering cursor on the screen. Are you sure this won't trace back? Cole shook his head. It's running through a proxy loop I built years ago. Unless Rennick's techs have top-tier military AI, we'll have a window, maybe 30 minutes. He inserted the drive. The laptop whirred, the faint light illuminating their faces. Ranger lay beside the hearth, eyes half open but alert. Each time the wind shifted, his ears twitched. The first folder opened automatically. RPD, internal. Elena read aloud. Beneath it, dozens of subfolders labeled transport, finance, clearance, and one that froze them both. Vale meeting. Cole clicked it. A grainy video flickered to life, time-stamped 3 weeks ago. The camera appeared hidden, maybe in a conference room vent. 2 men entered the frame. One was Rennick, uniform immaculate, the Silver Bend police insignia visible on his sleeve. The other, older, broad-shouldered, wearing a tailored charcoal suit and a smirk like he'd never been told no in his life. Elena's voice dropped. Thomas Vale. Cole watched the man take a seat, lighting a cigar. Rennick leaned forward. I'm keeping my end, Vale. The patrol routes are locked. No one's crossing that. Ridge without my clearance. Vale exhaled smoke, smiling. And the product? Rennick hesitated. Ready for transport. The lab's secure. Vale tapped ash into a crystal bowl. Good. The Ridge development must stay clean on paper. Tourists, investors, politicians, all believing it's a new eco-resort. Rennick nodded. Understood. We'll keep it that way. Then Vale leaned forward, his voice colder. And what about your little detective? Rennick's smirk flickered. Handled. She won't make it out of the mountains. The words hit like a punch to Elena's chest. Her breath trembled, hands gripping the table edge. That's me. Cole's expression hardened, but his voice stayed even. You're alive. That's what matters now. Elena's eyes glistened. 3 years ago I built a case on Vale. He owned Silver Bend's logistics firms, all tied to shell companies in Arizona. I had proof, shipments, dummy corporations, cash flow. But the department shut me down, said the evidence was fabricated. She swallowed hard. Rennick ordered the closure himself. Cole turned the laptop toward her. Looks like he wasn't protecting Vale's reputation. He was protecting his pipeline. They sat in silence, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Then Cole opened another file, one filled with encrypted financial transfers. He scrolled until he found a familiar name. Rennick's personal account, he muttered. He's been paid in crypto, routed through offshore trusts, total over 12 million. Elena leaned back, rubbing her temples. God, This isn't corruption anymore. This is organized crime wearing a badge. Cole stared at the screen, jaw tight. Then it's time to finish what they started. He reached for his satellite phone, the old military one still marked with faded serial numbers. It beeped twice before connecting. Owen Mercer, FBI. A tired male voice answered. Owen, it's me, Cole said. The voice sharpened instantly. Cole, Jesus, I thought you were off the grid. Where are you? No time for location talk. I've got a live case, federal level, corrupt law enforcement, trafficking, and a murder attempt on a police officer. I'm sending files through the secure channel. Static hummed through the line. Who else knows? Just us, Cole replied. For now. Owen sighed. You realize this means federal involvement. Once I file it, there's no pulling back. You sure about this? Cole looked at Elena. She nodded. We're sure. All right, Owen said. Send the data. I'll authenticate through Quantico's secure node, but it'll take at least 48 hours to verify chain of custody before we can issue any warrants. Cole frowned. That's too long. Rennick will move before then. I know, but if you want him buried legally, we need it airtight. Cole ended the call, then began encrypting the files. Ranger rose, padding closer to him, resting his chin on Cole's knee as if sensing the tension. Hey, Cole murmured, stroking his fur. We're not out yet, buddy. When the upload finished, Elena sat back, staring at the fire. Her face was pale, but her eyes carried something new, not just anger, but resolve. If the FBI needs 2 days, we have to survive 2 days. Cole nodded. Then we turn this cabin into a fortress. Abby entered from the back room, carrying a handful of ammunition boxes she'd recovered from her jeep. You two might want to see this. She dropped a folded paper on the table. It was a printed map, the ridge marked with coordinates. Where'd you get this? Elena asked. Found it on the body of one of those Viper unit guys. Abby said. They weren't just attacking us. They were mapping approach routes. This spot here. She pointed to the red X marked near their location. That's the next extraction zone. Cole's eyes narrowed. Meaning someone's still out there waiting for orders. Elena clenched her fists. They won't stop until the evidence is gone, and so are we. Ranger gave a low growl, staring toward the door again. The wind howled, but beneath it was another sound. Faint, rhythmic, like the crunch of boots over fresh snow. Cole stood slowly, checking the rifle's chamber. They're coming faster than 48 hours. Elena reached for her sidearm, voice steady. Then we make sure they regret it. In the corner, the firelight danced across the laptop screen. The last video frame of Rennick and Vale flickered for a moment, the men's faces distorted in the orange glow. The log at the center of the fire cracked, sparks rising like embers, and for a heartbeat, their names seemed to burn inside the flame itself. Ranger barked once, deep and sharp, breaking the silence. Cole glanced down at him. Yeah, he said quietly. Names in the fire, and before this is over, the world's going to see every one of them. The snow in Timberfall Canyon was so deep that it swallowed sound. Every step Cole took sank to his knees. The cold bit at his face, but his mind was steady. This was where it had to end. By dawn, the plan was set. They'd use one of the Viper unit's confiscated SIM cards to send Rennick a message, coded, urgent, and believable. It would claim that Vale's convoy had been intercepted, the shipment retrieved, and that the meeting point had to move immediately to Timberfall Canyon. The place was perfect, a natural choke point with a single exit road, surrounded by cliffs. If Rennick came, they'd have him boxed in. Abby crouched beside a snow-covered boulder, hands busy wiring small canisters together. Smoke mines, she said, glancing up. They won't kill anyone, but they'll buy us time when the shooting starts. Elena nodded, setting up micro-cameras on the surrounding rocks. We need the whole thing recorded. Vale handing off, Rennick confirming. That footage will bury them. Cole checked the radio jammer strapped to his vest. If we pull this right, Owen gets his evidence, and the Bureau moves in before they can scrub anything. Abby tightened a final wire, her breath misting in the air. And if it goes wrong? Cole didn't look up. Then it's just another day in hell. They worked in silence for hours, the canyon wind whistling between cliffs like a warning. By sunset, everything was ready. Only one thing was missing: Ranger. The shepherd had been sent to Abby's friend, a local vet, to rest and treat his bruised ribs. He'd earned that break. But when Cole glanced at the empty patch of snow near the truck, something twisted in his chest. It didn't feel right doing this without him. That night, miles away in a dimly lit veterinary shed, Ranger stirred from his cage. His ribs ached, but his instincts overpowered the pain. He could smell it, Cole's scent, faint in the wind, mixed with oil, gunpowder, and pine. Home. He paced in the kennel, whining softly. Then, with one sharp leap, he broke the latch and slipped out into the blizzard. The vet, asleep inside, never heard a sound. Ranger ran through the night, guided by nothing but scent and memory. The wind howled, the snow stung his face, but he didn't stop. Every paw print was a message. He was coming home. By the time dawn rose, Cole and Elena were already in position, hidden behind a ridge of ice. Through binoculars, Elena spotted headlights winding down the canyon road. They're coming. Cole checked his rifle. 2 SUVs, just like we planned. The vehicle stopped near the frozen creek. Doors opened. Rennick stepped out first, coat buttoned to his throat, eyes scanning the cliffs. Beside him, Thomas Vale, dressed in dark wool and arrogance. Behind them, 6 men in tactical gear, rifles ready. Showtime, Cole muttered. Abby's voice crackled in his earpiece. All charges armed, on you go. But something was off. One of the men in the convoy pulled a small shape from the back seat. A child, maybe 10 years old, shivering, hands zip-tied. Elena's heart clenched. Cole, they have a kid. What? He raised his scope. Sure enough, the boy's face was pale, terrified. One of the guards shoved him forward, using him as a shield. Cole's voice dropped. They must have grabbed him from town. Insurance. Rennick's voice echoed faintly across the canyon. Show yourself, Roe. I know you're alive. You think I didn't trace that signal. You think you can trick me. Elena whispered. He knows. Cole steadied his breathing. Doesn't matter. We adapt. Then the boy stumbled, crying out. One of the guards raised a hand to strike him, but before he could, a dark blur broke through the snow behind them. A bark echoed off the canyon walls. Loud, fierce. Ranger! Cole breathed. The shepherd tore, through the white, fur-matted eyes blazing. He lunged at the guard's wrist, teeth sinking deep. The rifle fell into the snow. The boy dropped to his knees, scrambling backward. Now! Cole shouted. Abby hit the detonator. Smoke erupted from the canyon floor, thick plumes of white and grey curling around the convoy. Confusion followed, shouts, gunfire, muffled echoes. Cole and Elena opened fire, clean and precise. Ranger darted through the haze, dragging the boy behind a boulder. The child clung to his fur, sobbing. Ranger stood over him, teeth bared toward the figures emerging from the smoke. Elena shifted positions, her camera still recording. We've got footage of Vale yelling at Rennick. It's all here. Cole ducked behind cover as bullets ricocheted nearby. Keep the camera rolling. Through the thick smoke, Rennick's voice roared. Find them. Kill them both. But Vale shouted back, panicked. You said no witnesses. Cole heard the argument clearly, the words bouncing through the canyon, exactly what they needed. He crawled to a better vantage point and fired again, clipping a Viper agent's shoulder. Ranger leapt at another, dragging him into the snow. The man screamed, his rifle discharging harmlessly into the air. Cole could barely see the dog through the fog, but the sound, that fierce, protective growl, told him Ranger wasn't backing down. "Cole," Abby's voice over the radio. "FBI's en route, 10 minutes out. Owen's team intercepted Rennick's signal." "Then we hold," Cole shouted. Another burst of gunfire erupted. A bullet grazed Elena's leg, but she stayed focused, keeping the lens steady. "Got them both on camera, Rennick threatening Vale." Cole's magazine clicked empty. He reloaded fast, peering through the fading smoke. The boy was safe, curled against Ranger's side. The shepherd stood rigid, breath steaming, eyes fixed on the last man still standing, Rennick himself. Cole stepped forward, rifle raised. "It's over, Miles." Rennick turned, eyes wild. "You think this changes anything? You think anyone cares about the truth?" Cole's voice was cold. "They will now." Before Rennick could raise his gun, Ranger lunged. The weapon flew from his hand, clattering across the ice. Cole moved in and kicked it away. Rennick stumbled backward, hands up. The canyon went quiet except for the hiss of smoke. Abby approached from behind cover, helping Elena limp closer. The boy still clung to Ranger, refusing to let go. The dog licked his face once, reassuring him before sitting down, chest heaving but proud. Cole exhaled, lowering his rifle. "Good boy," he whispered. Above them, distant sirens echoed down the mountain road, the sound of approaching rescue or reckoning. Elena leaned against Cole, watching the snow fall. "He came back for us?" she said softly. Cole nodded, his gaze on Ranger. "He always does." The shepherd turned toward the canyon mouth, ears pricked, as if already guarding against whatever might come next. The war wasn't over. Not yet. But in that frozen valley, surrounded by smoke and silence, the tide had finally turned. The canyon erupted again, this time in light. Floodlights from black SUVs sliced through the smoke, cutting across the snow and the chaos left behind. The echo of gunfire rolled down the cliffs like thunder. Cole squinted against the glare, his rifle tight in his hands. "Hold your fire!" he shouted over the roar. But the command was useless. Rennick's men were panicking, trapped between the rising ridge and the narrow pass where the FBI convoy had yet to appear. Elena crouched behind a boulder, pressing her sleeve against the wound in her thigh. "We have to end this before they scatter," she said. Cole nodded, reloading. "We will." Across the clearing, Vale stumbled through the haze, coughing, his tailored coat now streaked with soot. His arrogance was gone. He waved his arms toward Rennick. "You said no blood. You said clean exit." Rennick didn't answer. He was dragging the kidnapped boy by the arm toward one of the vehicles, his pistol pressed to the child's neck. His face was twisted, desperate. "Back off!" he yelled. "Nobody moves!" Ranger barked sharply, breaking through the snow beside Cole. Blood from a shallow cut on his side matted his fur, but his eyes burned with determination. "Stay," Cole said softly, though he knew it was pointless. Elena moved to flank Rennick, her breath clouding the air. "Let the boy go, Miles." "Not a chance." Rennick spat. "You think you can take me down and just walk away? You have no idea who you're dealing with." "Yeah, I do," Cole said, stepping from cover. "A man who forgot what a badge means." Rennick aimed his pistol toward Cole. "One step closer, and the kid dies." The boy whimpered. Cole stopped, lowering his rifle slightly. The snow muffled everything. The breath, the heartbeats, the silence before chaos. Then, out of nowhere, Vale lunged. He grabbed Rennick's arm, shouting, "You'll ruin everything!" The struggle was brief, desperate. A shot went off, hitting the hood of the SUV. The boy fell, scrambling backward. Rennick shoved Vale away, spinning to aim again. But in that fraction of a second, a streak of grey fur cut across the snow. Ranger. He hit Rennick full force, jaws clamping on the man's wrist. The gun fired once, the sound cracking like lightning. Ranger yelped, twisting in pain, but didn't let go. "Ranger!" Elena screamed. Cole charged forward. He tackled Rennick, wrenching the pistol free as the man went down hard in the snow. The boy ran to Abby, who pulled him behind a truck. Rennick fought wildly, clawing for the backup weapon at his belt. But Elena was there first. She kicked it away, then leveled her own gun at his chest. Her voice was steady, cold. "For every cop you buried in this snow, this is justice." Rennick froze, glaring up at her. "You'll never make it stick." Behind them, the wail of sirens grew louder. Dozens of lights appeared at the canyon entrance, FBI units flooding in from both ends, cutting off escape. Cole stood, breathing hard, blood from Ranger's wound staining the snow near his boots. "Looks like you're wrong," he said. FBI agents swarmed the area. One of them, Owen Mercer, ran straight toward Cole, his face pale under the flashing blue lights. "Jesus, Cole, what did you walk into?" Cole exhaled, shaking his head. Corruption that went deeper than the mines. He nodded toward the bound figures. "Rennick and Vale, both alive? You've got your proof." Owen looked down at Ranger, who lay still but breathing, his fur soaked crimson near the shoulder. "And him?" "He took a bullet for a kid he didn't even know," Cole said quietly. Medics rushed forward, lifting Ranger onto a stretcher. The dog's eyes flickered open long enough to find Cole's face. Cole leaned close. "You're all right, buddy. Stay with me." Ranger gave a faint wag of his tail before closing his eyes again. Nearby, Elena stood in handcuffs, not as a prisoner, but as protocol. Owen nodded at her, acknowledging what she'd survived. "You'll be cleared once we get your statement, Detective Rowe. You did the right thing." She looked toward the boy being checked by paramedics, her voice breaking. "He's safe. That's all that matters." Vale shouted from where he was pinned beside a truck, face pressed to the snow. "You can't prove anything without me." Elena turned to him, calm and sure. "We have the recordings. Your voice, your face, your contracts. You buried yourself." Rennick stayed silent, staring at the ground as agents cuffed him. The illusion of authority was gone. All that remained was a broken man, swallowed by his own greed. As the FBI began processing the scene, Cole walked to the edge of the canyon. The night had gone still again, only the faint hiss of burning fuel from a wrecked SUV breaking the quiet. He could see his reflection in the flicker of firelight. The soldier he'd tried to leave behind, now staring back. Elena approached beside him, limping slightly. "You okay?" He didn't answer right away. The flames crackled, sending sparks up into the dark. Finally, he said, "War follows us until we make peace with it." She looked at him, understanding in her eyes. "You think peace is possible?" Cole glanced toward the stretcher being loaded into the ambulance, Ranger's tail twitching faintly under the blanket. "Yeah," he said softly. "If he made it through tonight, then maybe so." Snow began to fall again, gentle this time, almost kind. The canyon that had echoed with violence hours before now lay blanketed in white, as if trying to erase what had happened. But some things, Cole knew, weren't meant to be forgotten. The truth had survived. Justice had found its way through the storm. And somewhere in the hum of engines and the fading sirens, Ranger let out a low, tired bark, the sound of a warrior still guarding, even as the snow buried the past behind them. A year had passed since the night the snow turned red in Timberfall Canyon. The town of Silver Bend had changed, not with noise, but with a quiet kind of pride. The corruption was gone, the fear had lifted, and the air finally smelled clean again. That morning, sunlight broke through the clouds over Silver Bend Memorial Park. The townspeople gathered, bundled in coats and scarves, their breath rising in white wisps. In the center of the park stood a new monument, covered in a white sheet waiting to be unveiled. Children held small flags, veterans saluted, and the mayor spoke softly into a microphone about courage, truth, and loyalty. Elena Rose stood at the front, her uniform crisp, her left arm still carrying the faint scar from the night she almost lost everything. She had traded undercover work for something greater. She was now the director of state security, leading reforms across the region. Beside her stood Abby Jensen, her ranger's badge gleaming in the light, and at her feet, the one everyone had come to see. Ranger. The German shepherd was older now. A small patch of grey had appeared along his muzzle, and his once sharp bark had softened, but his eyes, those steady, intelligent eyes, still carried the same fire. When the crowd quieted, Elena stepped forward, holding a medal in her gloved hands. Her voice carried through the winter air. "This medal," she said, pausing to look down at the shepherd sitting proudly beside Abby, "is not just for bravery. It's for what can't be trained, loyalty, instinct, and the courage to do what's right, even when no one's watching." The applause was long and heartfelt. Abby bent down, fastening the medal to Ranger's collar. The dog tilted his head, then licked her hand, and the crowd broke into laughter through tears. At the back of the crowd, half hidden beneath the branches of a bare oak, Cole Mercer watched in silence. He wore his old flannel jacket and carried the same distant calm as the day he arrived in these mountains. He didn't wear a uniform anymore, but something about his posture, steady, alert, made people move aside when he passed. When Elena spotted him, their eyes met for just a moment. She smiled softly, nodding in quiet acknowledgement. Cole returned it with the smallest tilt of his head, then looked away. He didn't need the ceremony. His reward stood there in bronze, waiting to be revealed. As the mayor finished his speech, the white sheet dropped from the statue. Gasps rippled through the crowd. There, cast in gleaming bronze, stood Ranger. One paw forward, chest lifted high, eyes fixed toward the horizon. Behind him, sculpted in motion, were three figures. Elena, Abby, and Cole, frozen in that moment of unity the night the truth came to light. A little boy tugged at his mother's coat, pointing toward the statue. "Mom, is that the dog from the story?" The mother smiled. "Yes, honey, that's Ranger." The boy turned to Elena, who had overheard him. "Did he really save people?" Elena knelt to meet his eyes. "Yes, but more than that, he reminded us what courage looks like." The boy's eyes widened. Was he scared? Elena looked up at the statue again, her voice soft but certain. "Maybe, but he never ran. He didn't bark for food. He barked for the truth." The crowd fell quiet. Snowflakes drifted through the sunlight, landing gently on the shoulders of the bronze figures. For a long moment, no one spoke. Even the wind seemed to pause. Cole finally stepped forward, resting a hand on the base of the statue. He looked at Ranger, whose real self was now lying beside Abby, tail thumping weakly against the ground. "You did good," he murmured. "Better than most of us ever could." Owen Mercer approached, wearing his FBI jacket, a familiar half-smile on his face. "You could have taken a medal, Cole. Maybe even a desk job." Cole shook his head. "No, that's not me. I belong out here. Some things you don't fix by sitting behind a desk." Owen glanced at Ranger. "He's slowing down." Cole smiled faintly. "He's earned it." The sun climbed higher, catching the statue's polished surface. The light flared across Ranger's bronze eyes, and for a heartbeat it seemed as if they were alive again, scanning the horizon, still guarding. Reporters moved through the crowd, snapping photos. Children pressed their mittened hands against the monument, and a local news drone buzzed overhead, capturing the moment from above. Elena took the microphone once more. This town went through darkness, but it was lighted by truth, and by one loyal heart that refused to give up. May we all carry a little of that courage with us. Applause rose again, and the camera zoomed out slowly, showing the entire park, the mountains rising in the distance, the snow glittering like glass. Cole turned to leave, walking back toward his truck parked by the trailhead. Ranger lifted his head, watching him go. Then, as if knowing this was goodbye, the dog gave one soft bark, not for command, not for warning, but as a promise. Cole paused, smiled, and raised his hand in quiet salute before disappearing down the snowy road. The last image lingered on the statue, the words engraved beneath it catching the morning light. He didn't bark for food, he barked for the truth. As the music swelled and the credits began to roll, a voiceover, Elena's, spoke one last line. Maybe that's what loyalty really means, guarding what's right, even when no one's left to see it. The screen faded to white, the mountains stretching endlessly beyond the frame. Then, the final message appeared across the screen. He didn't bark for food, he barked for the truth. What's your story with a loyal pet? Follow and support our channel, German Shepherd Stories, for more true tales of courage, loyalty, and second chances.